Hello, I'm Steph from iDriver Classic and I'm still here at the Standard Motor Club Rally 2024 and we're having such a good time taking the cars out and exploring them, and I've just managed to land the keys to this Standard Ensign Deluxe Estate. And now these are so rare. I've never seen one in real life before and I'm awfully excited to give it a go because this is probably one of my favourite cars on the field today, and she is beautiful. So I'm going to show you her today. We're going to have a look around the outside, have a look inside the engine bay, walk through the controls inside, and we're going to hear that engine roar and then take her out on a little bit of a test drive before returning her back to the rally field, because she's not there for showing at the moment. I really want her to win an award. So come on, buckle up, let's go and have a look at this Standard. The rear-wheel drive Standard Ensign wasn't a car which was made for many years by Standard Triumph, as the company was known by this point. The car was made from 1957 until 1963 in all its iterations, with the Ensign selling from 1957 until 1961, and around 8,800 units are sold in this time period. They then introduced the Ensign Deluxe, which includes the Ensign Deluxe Estate, which is what we're testing here today, and that sold for a very brief moment in time. In fact, it was only 1962 until 1963 where it's on the market, and they sell in this period of time around 2,300 cars, which makes this Ensign Deluxe Estate a very, very rare vehicle indeed. Now, when Standard make cars, they usually seem to fit into some sort of family, and the Ensign sits within the Vanguard family. If you're wondering what else sits in the Vanguard family, we've got a few other tests on the channel. And this might explain for some viewers why the shape feels so very familiar, because it is a slightly restyled body from the Vanguard Series III. And it is worth noting that this restyle was undertaken by Michelotti. And if you recognise that name, it's because he has a really special relationship with Standard Triumph, which lives on for many years. You see Michelotti working on Standard Triumph cars, or by that point Triumph cars, well into the 1970s. The initial Ensign was a bit of a modern move forward from the traditional Vanguard car. It boasts a move away from column change, and the cars go over to floor gear change alongside a 4-speed box. The functional well-built car initially was powered by a 1670cc engine and was never made as an estate. And it was favoured by fleet buyers looking for a sturdy, keenly priced workhorse, and they ended up very popular in places like the army, and with fleet buyers looking for a car which would give maximum miles and minimal time in a garage for repairs. Sensing the need of the professional audience, but wanting to deliver something a little bit extra, Standard then bring in the Ensign Deluxe and the Deluxe Estate. Now, there is a promise in the brochure of a solid lifespan of nearly 10 years. I feel like that doesn't sound much now, but at the time it was very good. And they also upgrade it for when they go into that deluxe era. And the car's fitted with a 2138cc engine, which I'll now just refer to as the standard 2 litre, which you then see in later Triumphs. You will see it in some of the Vanguard cars, and you also see it in the TR sports cars of this era. The engine was giving 75 brake horsepower and an MPG figure, which seems to vary on different literature. So I'm just going to go for a bit of a medium figure there and say it's in the region of mid-20s. Autocar reckon it's about 24.8, whereas I think some of the brochures and some of the magazines elsewhere seem to state it's around either mid-23s, so about 23.5, all the way up to nearly 26 miles per gallon. This increase in engine size not only gives the car an extra 15 brake horsepower, but also an increase in power of 25%, which is also helped by the revision of the design and the removing of 200 pounds of weight. Crucially, however, the company also promised the engine was easier to maintain and would last for longer. And they said the cylinders within the engine had wet liners, which then meant if it ever did wear out, they could be replaced at a fraction of the cost of a replacement engine. Now, this might seem a bit of a weird promise, but bear in mind we're in an era at this point where engines were giving up the ghost after 5 years, or even sooner if driven commercially. An autocar piece from the decade suggests that these standards and the cars which preceded it were getting around 75,000 miles between engine overhauls. Today, that figure might seem dismal for a modern car, but at the time, you might anticipate to rebuild the popular BMC A Series engine, which was used in a lot of family cars, after only 50 to 60,000 miles, which, trust me, I'm somebody who's had A Series for years, that 50,000 miles seems about right. That is where it is. Now, there was also a diesel engine option on these because, as we discussed in one of the recent standard videos, the company had begun to offer both diesel and petrol engines within the Vanguard range. It's also worth noting that that diesel option wasn't available until 1960. Now, the 2-litre engine, as we're testing here today, gives respectable enough figures. It does 0 to 60 in around 13 seconds for a saloon, and for the estate, as we're testing here today, it's around a second longer. Autocar reckoned that the car was capable of around 90 miles per hour, which was an increase of 12 miles per hour from the initial Ensign engine. The brakes, if you're wondering, are drums all round, but these were, according to Autocar, a little bit sketchy if you started braking quite heavily from 70 frequently, which isn't something I'll be doing today. There were disc brakes as an option, and additional options that you could pick included overdrive, duotone paint, heater and screen wash. And the Deluxes we're testing here today was literally sold with the strapline, proven reliability and a long life. And I think the lovely old workhorse has proven at least some of them have made it to claim that second accolade. Today, with so few available in the first place, very few of these deluxe estates survive. As they were sold and shipped worldwide, it's very hard to put an exact number on it, but I've been reliably informed it's one of the rarest models within the Vanguard family. This, like that Hillman Super Minx the other week that I said I would love to take home, is another one where I could picture myself living with this car for many different reasons. I mean, the attractiveness of the outside design catches you straight away. There's loads of space inside, and as you can see when you jump in, you immediately feel at home because your seating position is exactly where you need it to be. You can see to the end of the bonnet, you can reach everything with ease, and you've got all the controls that you need to possibly have and all the storage space. So let me show you a couple of the bits. Now, first of all, I want to show you this over here. It's the Totland service station plaque. Now, you might be wondering why it's there. That was the original dealership that sold the car on the Isle of Wight, and I was talking to the owner of this vehicle, and he said to me that it was purchased by a Scottish man, and then when he passed in 1970, it passed to a younger female relative, and she used the car very sparingly. She only did 400-500 miles a year, which kind of makes sense that the mileage is on less than 75,000, and the car looks so together. It's a beautiful example, and it's nice to see that little bit of history there, so I thought I'd tell you that as we looked through. Now, in the last standard video, you'll remember that I was lamenting the loss of a parcel shelf. Well, it's back in, just a little bit like that companion that we took out the other week. You've got this giant parcel shelf where you can get all your stuff in. Now, you might be looking around the car, by the way, when we were looking around and thinking, blimey, there's an awful lot of stuff in that car. Well, bear in mind, we're at the rally. We've all packed down because today's going home day. So there's probably a lot more stuff in this car than there usually is. But my goodness, it shows you how much room there is, that you can get everything in the back, and there's still plenty of room for the people inside. Remember, it was advertised as a 5 to 6 person vehicle. Coming across from there, you've got your heater controls, you've got your choke, which we're not going to need to use today because the car's being driven a little bit already. You've got your wipers, you've got your panel lights just here. You've got 3 gauges in front of you. You've got temperature, you've got your speedo and your trip clock, and you've got your fuel gauge over here. So if you remember, when we were looking at some of the other standards, they seem to have more, but I mean, to be honest, you don't really need much more than that to be able to function and get yourself around. I feel like temperature gauge is one of those things, when it's missing on an old car, you just want to slot it straight in because it's great for peace of mind. Coming down from there, you've got your windscreen washers. I believe they use that control on one of the Triumphs. It looks really familiar to me. I think it was the Herald that it was used in. Coming down from there, you've got these pulls. Now, you might be wondering what these are. These are actually attached to that period accessory fog light at the front. One of them is to turn it on and one of them is to move it. Now I'm a little bit nervous because I tried to move it and it's very stiff. So what I've decided to do is not touch it again because I would hate to break something like this. It looks original. I don't want to be the person that causes any problems. You've also got, I think that one's for the reverse light, which again is another period accessory which has been put on at the time. Coming down from there, you have got an ashtray, and it's worth noting actually that you've got ashtrays on both sides, which is a really nice touch. Now, I'm not a smoker myself, but for people that wanted to smoke and have the windows shut, which is my personal idea of hell, but people wanted to back when it was raining, I mean, just go for a quarter light. It's nice to have that on both sides, rather than going for that centrally located ashtray, which you often get, designed to save money and save space. It's nice to have that option. Coming down from there, you've got your light switch and you've got your handbrake there as well. And that is pretty much all your controls. A couple of other bits to show you. You've got your indicators here. So just like those other standards that we've been looking at. And we've also got our overdrive. Now to switch that on, it's 2 clicks down. So switch that back off. And that, just like the other standard, it is on 3rd and 4th gear. Now remember, when they marketed these, if you're wondering who it's marketed to, I was talking earlier about it being marketed at not only the professional man, which is what you would expect, and in the brochure they're very explicit about who they're marketing to, because they give case studies of people saying, oh, I love my Standard, I think it's great. And so they were marketing at a doctor within the brochure. But interestingly enough, when I turned the page, they were also marketing at the professional woman, which is something that I don't get to see in many brochures. And so they commented on the positioning, and they said that the visibility was great. I would concur on that. They talk about the sensibly spaced pedals. Now what they're doing with that is if you look at a car like a Morris Minor and you have a larger size shoe on, so some of my friends driving Doc Martens say, you can end up catching the pedals. And these, talking about the sensibly spaced pedals, they are right. There is lots of room between them. And actually it does make, I've only used them briefly, does make using them a lot easier. That is true. Now the other thing that they talk about is the gear change for women apparently is easy and it's smooth, and also the steering is light. So we'll get those put to the test. However, let's get it started up and hear what it sounds like. Now, I've spoken to you about the engine already. So now the way to get this started up, by the way, is slightly different to how we started the others. So we don't need to have a push or pull start, it's just straight key turn, but we do need to have our foot slightly down on the accelerator. So goodness me, let's check we're out of gear. It's a really nice sounding engine. Now I know they use that block in some of the Triumphs as well. It's running such a beautifully smooth note. Come and have a listen from the outside and then we'll take it for a little test drive. Right, let's go. Oh, this is just lovely. Right, let me pull out onto the road and I'll start having a natter with you about this, because this might be my favourite car of the day actually. I'm driving as alone. Really nice. Right, back into first gear. Blimey, she's winning. I didn't expect this to have such gusto when we got out on the road. It's really good. I'm loving this. Now first of all, let's pick up on the first marketing promise. Is that gear change easy? At first, I couldn't work out where third was, and I thought, have I got a tricky test drive ahead of me. Tried it the second time, found it like that. So easy. You have to be quite forthright when you go into second gear, but other than that, the rest of the gearbox is very easy to navigate, and it's exactly where you'd expect all the gears to be. Now the steering is where this car comes into its own, because a lot of times when manufacturers say, oh, the steering's really light, don't worry, and you get in and you find that you needed to have spent a few weeks down the gym before you actually drove the thing, it can feel a little bit disconcerting. I've got into this, and I would say, comparatively speaking, it's as light, if not lighter, than a Morris Minor, and that has thrown me somewhat, because I was expecting to get in and find it maybe a shade under that Vanguard. I thought that's probably where it would sit in terms of steering, and it's not at all. It feels so very modern, and I just love this so much. It's just one of the easiest things that I have ever driven. It's just so sprightly as well. Now that's the thing that I think I wasn't really expecting to experience. I think I thought it was going to be a little bit cumbersome just due to its size, and I'm completely wrong on every single account. Now as you see, I'm just pulling away in second, and the reason I've done that is because we've got no synchro on first. Now I wasn't expecting to have synchro on first because of the age of the vehicle, and when you've driven as many old cars as I have and you drive them as frequently as I do, that just becomes second nature, that you just don't expect it. So that's certainly no negative for me. But you see there that I'm going to be quite positive when I go into the second gear. Now look, as I come round here, even trying to navigate this very tight roundabout, it's not difficult at all. And I think that even somebody that had never driven anything old probably wouldn't struggle too much getting round that. This is just so pleasing. It's pleasing to the eye, it's pleasing to drive, and I would desperately love one. But again, like many of these desirable vehicles, it's well out of my price budget. Now if you're watching this video, as people sometimes do, and thinking, I would like one of those, that looks right up my street, and I actually do have the budget, I'm going to let you into a little secret. The club support for these is absolutely phenomenal. I have never met a club of standard size, so I think they've got about 1,000 members, and found that they are just so supportive. They are brilliant, whether it's knowledge that you need or parts that you need. They will help you out and answer every single question, and they'll support you all the way. And I mean, it says a lot today for the rally, where there's just so many cars here for vehicles that haven't been made since the 1960s, that there is just such a camaraderie and such club support. So if you're looking at this and thinking, I don't know where I'm going to get parts, or I don't know where I'm going to start, don't let that put you off. Give the club a call and get them to help you, because they are just a wonderfully supportive bunch. I really like them. I think they're dead friendly. Other than that, what don't I like about it? I'm really struggling with that. It's one of those cars that you take out and you're sitting here and you're thinking, what can I criticise? What can I criticise? I guess I would like it to be slightly easier to get into second gear, and apart from that, I have no criticisms. I love where the steering wheel is positioned. The spacing of the pedals is exactly where you need them to be. The light handling on the steering makes it a real pleasure, and the space and the size of the vehicle makes it something that you could easily take on a very long drive, and I don't think you feel fatigued, because the way that the seats are designed is they're so well padded that when you slide in, you don't feel like you're sitting on a bench seat with a gnarly bit of foam under your bottom and you think, oh, you know, I'm going to be arriving and needing to see a chiropractor. It feels like a car that you could take to the ends of the earth and still have a lot left to give. It's wonderful. I don't understand why more people didn't go for these. They're just phenomenal. Look at it. There we go. Struggled to get into third gear after I said that I'd have no troubles. It's just, oh, road positioning please. It's just delightful. I'm very sad actually to be handing the keys back on this one. And if there was a car on the rally field that I could take home, it would probably be this one. It ticks all the boxes for what I like. It's practical, it's got real liveliness out on the road, the handling is easy, it's spacious, I could fit all my friends in with me, and it's not only an attractive design, but also it's rather shallow to say, it's a very pretty colour as well. Now that's it from me today. I've really enjoyed taking you out in her. Marvellous to drive, fun to look at, and such a shame that it's such a rare beast. Now I really hope you've enjoyed it. I'm not entirely sure what we've got in next Sunday, but we have got quite a few good cars in the bag. So until then, take care and drive safely.